today I'd like to talk to you about science and reaching your goals. And maybe we all have had that experience. So we set out to write a paper, or we read our emails, or we want to lose weight and we eat ice cream, or we want to finish a project, but we, clean out our inbox, or you can plug in really anything that you want to achieve and you haven't done it, getting fit, learning a language, or anything, or, finishing your master's. So we've all had that situation. And so the question is, why is it for some people seemingly so effortless to achieve those goals, and for others, it's not really? So mind you, please excuse me, normally I've deleted a lot of slides, and I know I only have 45 minutes. It doesn't work properly, or?
Yeah, so just to say, I'm currently seeing slide 3 now. So I was seeing slide 2 before.
Okay.
So I think we're seeing your other screen, perhaps.
So do I need to change something?
I'm just sorry, just let me mute that other. There we go. Sorry.
Because
so
I think
I'm
you can see
slide
Zoom
2.
too, right?
Yes, I can see slide 2 at the moment.
Okay, but you see the Zoom part too, right? How do I?
I can see the timer. Yes. So I think we're seeing your other screen. Perhaps you're using 2 screens.
Oh yeah, possible. Okay, so you don't see yourself in the picture.
No, we're just
okay. That's awesome. Okay, great. So no, that's good.
Is that fine?
Then okay, sorry. So yes. So sorry. So we all have goals, or bigger or smaller, and we don't really achieve them. So again, this was what we're doing. Yeah. So anyway, so what we will cover today is first, how do we define goals, and then why goals are important, and why it's not just a modern day personal development invention. And also, science versus personal development. But also the importance of planning, measurement, and documentation. That's what Tricia said about the systems background. And the most important part, and this is why it's a workshop, you will fill out your own goal planning flowchart. So a goal really, what are goals defined it, and we all have our own definition. And here at the bottom, you can see the reference where I have the definition from, and that paper defines goals. The goal is an internal representation of a desired state, where as a state is broadly construed as an outcome, event, or process. And so for most of us, especially people with a non-scientific background, and this speech, I've kept it as lay sciencey as possible, so I will not go into anything that deep, and I'm missing the time for that too. But for all of you who are interested, at the end of the slides, there's a whole bunch of references. And then I have, I think, 160 papers that I've been going through over the past year on that topic. So if anybody is really, really, really motivated and interested, I'll gladly share my my reference list. Just send me an email afterwards. So yes, so anyway, so goals are not just something we want to have. It's not a certain weight, a certain degree, or a certain job we want, but it can also be an event and a process. And I thought that was really interesting. Now, goals are important because goals energize us and they direct our behavior consciously and unconsciously. And in one of the base papers of goal theory, they talk about conscious and unconscious goals and how our unconscious goals can really sabotage our conscious goals. And then goal striving is also linked to our overall well-being and our happiness and how we feel and how good we feel about ourselves and how positively or negatively we perceive ourselves and the world around us. With goals, also the feeling of progress and of learning makes us feel good. And that is something, for example, video game companies really, in my humble opinion, totally abuse, because they make they make us addicted to video games. And there's a really deep process behind it. If you're interested in that, at the bottom of the slide, there's a reference from an MIT paper on how to properly design a video game. And just reading that is really scary and frightening. And reading that will make you view little iPhone games with in a totally different light. So yes, so we have science versus personal development. And many of us probably have read some sort of personal development book, a classic from Earl Nightingale or Napoleon Hill or any of those. And the problem there really is that they're really more anecdotal. And often they're very sales oriented because they really want to sell something underlying. In today's world, we have the other side. We have people, they claim it's science, and they pretend to be scientists or have a science background, or they pretend to have read papers. And then that is something I did very early on, is I would look at the references at the end of the book. And thanks to King's College, I could actually read the entire paper. And I realized that the authors actually never read the papers, because the paper would say something quite different than what the authors claimed. And mind you, that are Times best-selling authors that really sold millions and millions of books. Another beef I really have with personal development would be the idea that they tell you you can achieve anything. And they tell you this in this way, that if you don't reach it, it's just your mindset, you have limits, you have this or that. But honestly, that's a discussion I had with my daughter recently. She's 13. And, you know, somebody in school said she can achieve anything. I said, you can nearly achieve anything. You're too tall to become, you know, a world-class gymnast. And she really is too tall for that. So there are limits. She's 13 years old. She will definitely never become a world-class ballet dancer, because they better start at the age of 3. So some things, it definitely has limits. I might be able to do my master's right now, but hey, I'm approaching 50. I will definitely not have that kind of research experience in a few years, like a 20-some-year-old who has no other things in life he or she needs to do. So another big problem we have with personal development, again, is this idea of you fail, it's your fault. And that's dangerous, because it does not account for luck, or it doesn't account for, you know, things, unexpected things to happen in a good or in a bad way. So somebody can start a business, and whatever, Oprah finds their product online and endorses them, and they'll sell a lot of their product, and somebody with the exact same product, you know, will never sell a single product. So it's really dangerous, some of the things personal development tells us. And often they mistake pop science for science. And that is a big problem that many of us know who are at King's College right now. So the thing is, science says often something very different than those books and pop science tell us. And this is really the background I came from, is really wanting to know, so what's the truth? Oh, you know, what really does help people? What does science say that actually works? And so I worked the whole thing backwards. I didn't start with the idea, hey, I have this belief, this is how you reach goals. But really from the thing is, okay, so what does science say about goals? Where do they come from? Why do we have them? And how do we achieve them? And so one of the first papers I read is a classic on goal theory. And I think it is definitely in the end in the references. It's quite old, and it's really an awesome paper. And I think I have most of the paper highlighted. So anyway, yes. So one of the most important things I found with setting goals is that we really need a plan. We can't just jump into it. And so what the flow chart you all have really is the beginning of starting to wanting to reach your goals. And everything else I teach, even in my longer courses, is just really based on that and just going more in depth, because obviously those 45 minutes, you know, unfortunately, we can't fix everything. I wish we could. So another important thing is we need to document our process. So we will document your process, the desire to reach your goals, and we'll break it down into smaller chunks. And then what we'll do is we'll turn those chunks into processes, so stuff you can actually work on. And we definitely plan for obstacles and resistance, because obstacles will come, difficulties will come. You plan to write your paper and the phone will ring, or your dog will become sick, or your computer might break down. There are many things that can happen. And if we live in this idealized world of personal development, that definitely does not happen in movies, but in real life, things like that happen, or kids get sick, anything. But what we want to do is we want to create automatic action patterns that lead you toward your goal as if on autopilot. So basically really creating habits. And when I started doing this, I had some really surprising results. And maybe you have that too at the end when we filled out your flowchart together. So what we want to do is we want to create a goal plan. And one of my favorite authors, and like Tracy said, I have a background in business. So when I studied business 145 years ago, we read Peter Drucker's In Search of Excellence. And that's one of his most famous quotes of his book, where he says, you can't manage what you can't measure. And I think this is very much true in reaching goals too, that we need to really start measuring what we're doing and if it's leading us into the right direction. Another quote is, and I don't know who says that, but you can't optimize what you don't document. And I've heard it from a lot of people, so I really have no idea who originally said it. But I suspect that it's just a variation of Peter Drucker's sentence, this one here. So the world we live in, it has totally changed in the past few hundred years, right? We have phones, and our phones definitely don't look like the phone on the screen here. We use maps pretty often, but they're not paper, and they're definitely nothing like this. And we travel and we fly, and it's not anymore by Zeppelin. We fly and we communicate at lightning speed, and we often expect results at the same kind of in the same kind of speed, like our lives have changed. But people and brains did not change. We have relationships, we need relationships, and our brains, they're still wired like they were 10,000 years ago. So many things we weren't really meant to be exposed to. We weren't meant to have that kind of distraction, or, we're still wired for real personal contact, and having this Zoom-like contact since COVID really is not, really has a whole bunch of side effects that we today don't even, we aren't even able to fathom what it'll do long term. So what we need in order to reach goals is a set of tools, and we need work sequence. And sequence does matter, and they're critical for goal achievement. And this is why I created this flowchart that you all have. So basically you have sequence. If you drive a car and you have a shift gear car, you can't change gears and then, press the clutch. It'll kill the car. If you want to write, you first need to put ink into your pen, or it won't write. Or even making coffee without, coffee grains, your coffee won't work. So sequence does matter. And this is, again, the reason why I've started this flowchart. We can't just jump into, we might have a great idea, and we can't just jump into it. So basically, we're starting with this, the picture at the bottom right, which I call the caged brain, is where we are right now. And we want to get to the point where we automatically can reach our goals, when our habits and our thoughts and our actions become so habitual, so automatic, that we'll just do them and we don't think about if or not we feel like doing something. So this is the path we want to go. And again, it's important to note that goals, they're nothing new. I had a client recently and we talked about goals, and he said, yeah, but goals are something really new. Humans never had goals before. And of course, I mean, even my dog has a goal. I mean, just see me opening the fridge and you'll see my dog standing there begging, barking, whatever. And my dog definitely has the goal of, you know, influencing me to give her something to eat. So we've always had the thing of goals, be it, you know, food and drink for the dog, be it having shelter, reproduction. They're all very goal-oriented behaviors that led to our human survival. And so we start out, we define our goal, and those are the 8 steps that we'll be doing. And the next one is we'll look at the milestones that we need to achieve those. And then we'll see what do we need to focus on, because often we have that huge, massive goal and we need to really cut it down to just one part before we, and focus on that one part. And then we'll look at process goals. And I'll go into that in detail in a second. And then we have learning goals, because there's a difference between process goals and learning goals. And they're both equally important, but they're very different in the way we handle them. And then what we'll do is we'll talk about if-then scenarios. And that is something that, that is very useful if you write it down on a piece of paper, because you'll need many more of those than you have space in the paper you got. And then we'll talk about measuring feedback. And in the end, about the automatic actions that you'll have built or will have built together for you. So this is how the whole sheet looks. I mean, that's what it looks like when it's not filled. That is what you have. And this is really where we have, where's my mouse? Yeah, so at the bottom right, you have the goal part. And this is really where you commit yourself to a single goal for a predetermined time frame. And it can be 3 months, it can be a month. I wouldn't really go that far into the future, because if you look at companies, they generally have quarterly goals. And I have this inkling that our brains really can't process stuff too far in the future. Yes, and I'm definitely, if we search Ovid, we'll definitely find something along that in brain science. But generally in organizational science, they stay with quarterly goals. So then with milestones, what we'll do is we'll define 3 to 5 significant milestones on your way. And mind you, we'll go through an example together, so you don't need to fill anything out now. And then the focusing is really looking at what do I need to change to reach my goal? Because if I would be able to reach this goal effortlessly right now, I would have been doing it, but I haven't. So we need to look at what can I change and what am I willing to change? The next step up is the process goals. And that is, really, you determine what process or what operational procedures are required for you to reach that goal. And I know it sounds quite complicated now, but it'll be really simple and easy once we work through it. And then learning goals, and that is really strategic learning to increase self-efficacy. And again, that classic paper that I'll be citing in the end with the goal theory, really they say it's and many papers say that, and you have that with motivation, that the research really says that self-efficacy is a big factor if or not people put in the work and stick to reaching a goal, the feeling that they can achieve the goal. And this is why we need both process goals, so the stuff we do, and learning goals, is because if we get stuck reaching a goal, we need to go back into that step and see, okay, so what do I need to learn? Where do I need to create this self-efficacy that I know I can do the tasks required to achieve that goal? And then there are the if-then scenarios, and there are quite a few papers that talk about that, that if we write down or create if-then scenarios in our heads, we are much more likely to stay on track because we plan for things that can go wrong. So we plan an effective course of action and how to handle possible obstacles. And again, like I've said before, real life happens and things that we don't plan happens. There are, traffic jams or coffee spills, whatever, and they're real life, and it's okay to have those. And then the second last step, the next one, is to measure feedback. And that's really important. Again, you know, we can't, you know, what Peter Drucker said, what we don't measure, you know, we have no control over it. So what we'll do is we'll track your progress and course correct if needed. So it's not like you don't have to have this ideal world scenario that every day I'll get up at 5 o'clock and I'll run 10 kilometers. No. So it's really, you know, this measuring of your progress and not as much of measuring perfection. And the last one is really then, you know, automatic and goal leading mental representations, because a goal really is just a mental representation, but that we really get to the point that we automatically do the things we want to do. And again, course correct if those automatic thoughts and behaviors don't lead us into the direction we want to go to. And so this is your sheet, and I hope you have it all ready, and we'll start filling it out together. Okay, or is there anybody who has any pressing questions right now? No? Okay, so we'll just start filling this out, and I filled it out with my own example. So we'll start out with the goal. So again, contrary to what many motivational books will tell you, a goal does not need to be really perfectly measurable or anything like that. So basically for me, or for many of us just doing our masters, we might have as a goal to get a good grade in the current module we're in. And this is a goal. And so if I think, so what needs to happen for me to achieve that? Because that goal is great, but it's kind of like a huge heap of stones, and it has so many moving parts. So I look at the milestones. So for all of you, maybe write down a goal for the next, something that you want to achieve over the next, 2-3 months. And it can be anything, and thankfully nobody will read what you guys are writing.
If anybody wants to share their goals in the chat, they're very welcome to, but obviously you can totally keep it to yourself. Yes.
Okay, so next you take the 3 to 5 milestones. And what I took here is that that I watch all lectures that were provided, that I do all the core readings. And obviously a big part of the grade is writing my essay and studying for the MCQ. So those are 4 big things that need to happen well for me to get a good grade in this current module. So just take a minute or two and think of a few big milestones of things that need to happen for you to be able to reach your goal.
We get to do this. It's so rare I actually get a chance to think about this.
Yes, if you need some more time, we can take another minute maybe. Okay, so next we'll be looking at things you need to be focusing on. And that is, this one thing that needs to change, or the things that really need to change. So for me, it would be to decrease distraction and increase targeted study time. So for example, for most people wanting to do weight loss, it would be generally, moving more and eating less. So it's really distilling it down to something that needs to happen. Or if you're building a business, it wouldn't also need, you would need to decrease distraction and increase targeted work time. Or learning a language, it would be, doing the language classes. So what needs to happen for you to achieve that goal? Okay, then we take another minute. Okay, so let's go to the next one. So what process goals do you need? So what processes do you need to run in order to achieve the stuff you have in focusing? So in my example, it would be fixed study times with phone and email off. So really blocking time, if necessary, put it into my calendar and really have those cast and iron times when I do nothing else but doing the studying part that I need to do. And turn off the phone, turn off notification, put noise canceling headphones on if you have small kids, lock yourself in, and just do that basically come hell or high water. So that is a process goal. So again, if it's, losing weight, it would be maybe following that eating plan, getting a personal trainer. What process goals do you need to achieve or to install for you to achieve your goal? And again, if you're having trouble in that, just write it in the chat box and we can work through one of your examples. Okay, so let's go on to the next one, if you're all done. And it depends on your goal. You can have 3, 5. I wouldn't take too many process goals. So this is why I would always go, make that goal smaller, make it attainable. And you have that across all literature. It needs to feel attainable. And this is where we come to the learning goals, is with self-efficacy. So in my example with wanting to get a good grade in my current module is that I really need to learn to stay on course with research and not go down rabbit holes. So one of my biggest weaknesses is I open Ovid or Science Direct or any of those to do research, and then you go from one paper to the next, and suddenly I've downloaded way too many papers and going into directions I really don't need to go for my paper. And half a day can be gone, used to be, before I would realize that I've gone down the completely wrong rabbit hole. And so for me, it's learning to keep that at bay. And this is my learning goal, that I figure out how do I stay on track when doing research. Okay, so let's get then to the if-then scenarios. And basically what this is, and I'm sharing the paper, you have the reference in the end of the slides with if-then scenarios, and there's quite a bit of research on that, how writing down those if-then scenarios, really like in an Excel sheet, the if-then really helps us to deal with obstacles. So basically, I plan for things that might go wrong, or plan for, the old habit to resurface or anything like that. So basically, I start writing down. So if I get the urge to distract, then I will turn off my phone and focus. So really bringing it from the unconscious level into the conscious, that I used to get distracted with my phone. But from now on, whenever I realize, when the point comes that I realize I'm distracted, then I will turn off my phone and focus. So if I catch myself going down the Ovid rabbit hole, then I will immediately get back on track. And this is something, whenever you realize something isn't working out, you can just get a piece of paper or write into your journal and just write a few of those. So if I realize I'm not doing as I'm supposed to do, or if I realize I feel like eating 2 kilos of chocolate while working on my paper, then I will choose an apple. And just writing those possible scenarios down. So the papers don't really go into the neuroscience of that, what actually happens in the brain. So it's more like a organizational behavior and psychology thing. But it has been repeated too often to just be ignored. And it really does help to not judge yourself when something goes wrong. It's just planning like a business would plan. If profits aren't high enough, then we will do this. And just write 2 or 3 of them down. The example in the paper was an interesting one, because they used spider phobias. So basically, the patients were writing down, so if I see a spider and get scared, then I will ignore it. Which I thought was really interesting example. Okay, so the next one would be to measure feedback. So basically, I'll keep a list, a journal, a to-do list, or something where I can track my daily study units, say in my planning tool. So for example, the Pomodoro method would be a classic, or any way that you can track it. So if it's, getting fit, you can track your training hours, or the weightlifting repeats, or you can, if it's business, you can, how many productive phone calls did I do? Figure out a way for you to track that you are that you're doing your process goals. So my example here is a fixed study times where with phone and email off. So I would say, okay, so every morning from 10 to 11, I have one of those everything off study units, and then keep track of it in the evening. Did I really do that? And if I didn't do it, you go back to the learning goals. What do I need to learn in order to be able to do that? Going back to the if-then scenarios, it's really, running the whole system again. So if you realize you're off track, go back. And maybe you need to even go back down to milestones. That's why you have the errors, the dotted line errors, is so maybe your milestones are off. So maybe you need to change something there. And it's really just a trial and error thing where you give yourself permission that they're really all just moving parts, and you're trying to figure out what works best for you, and not taking it as something that, again, needs to be clad in iron and that's the way it is. But figure out how it works for you. So maybe the fixed study time, so maybe my milestones, maybe I need to scale where in that example, I can't really scale down on them. But so I leave my milestones, I go back to the focusing, and I decrease distraction, yes, but maybe my process goal is wrong. Maybe I need multiple study times. Maybe I need to, you know, if I have kids, I might need to keep my phone on, but do any other process that helps me to achieve the goal. And going back to the learning, what do I need to learn? What can I change? And really seeing it like a research topic, something you're researching, and you find out new stuff that actually works for you. Or maybe even a little playful is like, okay, so, you know, which cog can I turn in which direction to get maybe a different result that I've had before? So here this one is really, how can you track it for yourself? Do you keep a journal? Do you keep a to-do list? Do you keep, you know, some way of in your calendar maybe? I'm very much for pen and paper ways to track, because we're all way too much on all electronic things. So I would highly encourage you to really, you know, use a notebook or something to start tracking those things. And then the last one is really, you know, plan to, so the automatic action I want is that I'm able to really sit down for my study period, and I can plan a goal for each study session and then put in the focused work. So it's really, you know, making the goal smaller and smaller and smaller, going from this huge thing, I want to have a good grade in my current module, to, okay, milestones, I need to watch all the lectures. So what you basically can do is you can take this whole planning tool and get smaller and smaller and smaller to the point where you're really at one study session. So then at the bottom right is, I want to, whatever, work through all, you know, through this, this whole topic for this week in this study session I'm doing. And then milestones. So this, you know, in this topic, we're covering, you know, any of those topics, and what do I need to focus on, and what process do I follow, and then work this really into smaller and smaller units, that it becomes measurable, and you have this feeling of self-efficacy that you know absolutely that you can do that. And if you say, hey, it's only an hour of a study session, just planning it out will make it so much more effective for you. And there's even science for that too. So basically, you can have those multiple of those, using them, and see how it really changes the way you approach even a single work session or study session or workout session, or anything that you set out to achieve as a goal. And yes, and then here are the references. So those are the references for goal theory, and the classic one is the Latham, and where is it? Yeah, from, it's an older one. Oh, it's not on there. I can still send it to you guys because there were just so many. And then goals and happiness, how goals make us happier, you know, create well-being. And then goals and motivation is a big one. Volition, that is, sorry, my dog is barking in the background. Really this will, how do we get ourselves to want something? And then grit is a really big one. I didn't go that deep into it, especially since it has been such a fashionable thing to study in the recent years.